Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of For Checking TV. I'm your host, Doug Gladkey, and alongside me is my co-host, Scotty Porterfield. And tonight we also brought TK back for this special episode where we discuss the Pittsburgh Penguins going to join the Black Parade.
Yes, indeed. It doesn't. It kind of settled in a little bit last night. It definitely hurt a little bit this morning, rolling out of bed, realizing that we're uh, we're at the end of the road now. It seems. It really feels like we've moved on now, and it's not a good feeling. I'll say that last night's loss was probably the worst I felt about a playoff game since when they lost to Washington in 2018. I think I felt the worst about that. That's the worst I've felt at least since then. So I mean, it's a lot to digest right now, obviously. So that's what the purpose of this episode is for, because there's obviously a lot to take in with this situation right now.
Yeah, I think, for me, real quick, I think it's probably the worst I felt since they blew the other 3-1 lead to the Rangers in what was either 2014 or 2015, because 2014. Okay. It was, that was another time where the franchise was at a crossroads. We didn't really know what was going to happen. And I mean, there was a very real possibility they were going to blow it up then too. But now we're to the point now where, I mean, when you run it like this, you're always going to have to pay the piper at some point. So now might be finally the time where we start paying the price for this past 17 to 18 years of fun.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can make the case that the Pens have been, kicking the can down the road for the last 2 or 3 years. I'd say, in terms of just trying to keep the window open, and now it seems like the time has come where the Grim Reaper's coming to collect his dues, and I don't think this one's going to be pretty at all, to say the least. The Penguins have three. Obviously, if you don't know by now, you're pretty much living under a rock. But the Penguins have a few players up for free agency. Obviously, Gino and Letang being the big ones. Also, Brian Russ is another one. Rickard Rakell's up for free agency. So is Evan Rodriguez. Casey DeSmith and Louis Domingue are also up for free agency. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered heading into this offseason. This is going to be one where we're going to see what the new ownership group has planned for this franchise, and we want to see what direction they end up going in. Because obviously there's been speculation all over the Twitterverse today. Wonder what they're going to do. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Do you guys think, as far as the Pens go, we've seen a long time with that trio of Crosby, Malkin, Letang. As you mentioned, Scotty, Letang, and Malkin both up for free agency here. Are the Penguins going to stick with dumping their money into the veterans and keeping them around? I mean, they've been here for so long. I know we talked before on some podcasts when I was with you guys before on kind of Gino and Letang kind of earned their right to kind of retire as a Penguin. But is that time going to happen too early where they're going to go somewhere else, or do you think even the new ownership now is going to dump money back into them just to keep them around and work the money elsewhere for other players?
I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I think one of the two are going to leave. Obviously, in dire scenario, the two of them and Rust leave. But I think if one of them were to stay, it's probably Malkin. I think he's going to command a much cheaper AAV than people realize. I think that his AAV will probably come in around $6.5 million, which is manageable for the Penguins. But somebody's going to go just back up and bring truck for Chris Letang. I mean, and they'll give him the term he wants to. They'll give him that 5-year term, even though he'll be playing out that contract until he's 40. But he's getting better with age. He's gotten so much better over the past year or so. And it looks like that's not going to slow down. Obviously his his agent for most of his career, Kent Hughes, is the general manager in Montreal. So if the Canadians are able to move out money, or, you know, Carey Price retires or gets moved or something like that, they will have that money that's needed to go out and pursue Chris Letang.
Yeah, and just you know, obviously you touched on Gino and Letang, Doug. Looking at Brian Rust, he's probably heading this offseason saying, you know what, I completely balled out this year. Well, not completely balled out, but he had a good year. Obviously, that goes without saying. He's just turned 30, like what, this past week, last week or whatever. He's looking at this offseason saying, you know what, I got one shot at making a big contract, getting the 7 million, 8 million a year for 6-7 years or 5, however long it may be. He's looking at this offseason saying, this is my one shot at getting a pay. So I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up testing the waters and seeing how it goes for him. And there will be a team that pays for Brian Rust, no questions asked. And I don't think the Penguins are going to be able to match it, whether they end up bringing back Malkin and or Letang or not.
Another player. Go, Scotty. Go, Doug. Go.
Sorry. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of stuff about Detroit potentially going all in for him, and with where they're at in their rebuild, that would make a lot of sense. It's just a matter of if they're going to want to pull it off. So we'll see. Go ahead, TK.
Another one, like you said, we touched on Russ. Now I'm going to move ahead for Raquel as well. Doug, I know I talked to you before. You know, when they got him at the deadline, he was more of a rental for that time being, because obviously he was on the contract he's on. But you know, he's kind of proved himself a little bit in Anaheim. I mean, more than a little bit, I'd say. He's done pretty well in his time here in Pittsburgh. He's going to want more of a contract than what he was on for the current little time that he came over from Anaheim. So, I mean, looking at him right now, do we think the Pens have the chance to pay him too, or what kind of money would he be looking at in a contract, you know, per year?
I think that he's one of the ones that, you know, when you think of the fringe guys outside of the core, he's one of the 3 guys that I would want them to explore bringing back, because they need somebody to play with Sid and Jake. You know, I think that if you did like 5 years, around like a 4.5, anywhere between 4.5 to like a $5.25 million AAV, that would be the number you get him at. I think that's the magic number, and that should be probably the starting point. Obviously he looked really, really good with Crosby whenever they were playing together. And that's another reason why I kind of am okay with them moving on from Rust is there were times in the past, probably 2 to 3 years, where Mike Sullivan, I feel like, overcommitted to keeping Rust with Sid. And that didn't help them enough, because if you put Brian Rust on a second line, he plays well with Malkin, and it makes your team more dangerous from a lineup distribution perspective. And the fact that Raquel wasn't with Sid to start the playoffs was just beyond asinine to me. I thought that was going to be the money in the bank right there. The splitting Rust and Crosby up and just putting Raquel on one line, Rust on the other, and then letting your third line be whatever combination it was, whether it be Zucker, Carter, and Kapanen, or Zucker, Carter, and Rodriguez. So, yeah.
Yeah, just building off that, Doug, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Even though it was a limited sample size with Sid and Raquel, there's chemistry there. And if you are going to try and somewhat recreate Brian Rust or replace Brian Rust in the act, that's your best candidate to do it. Obviously, people make a case for Erod, but I feel like he's more suited as like a depth piece. We've seen that in just these playoffs alone. You saw how well he excelled when he was given that opportunity. So I feel like you're better off going with Ricky Rax up top with Sid and Gensel and just trying to see what you can do with that line, because they could still be effective, you know, when the season rolls around next year.
Yeah, and the other thing that we didn't touch on with Raquel is he plays that physical style of hockey. he plays that style that you need to win in the NHL. And it's not like that he's going to goon it up and try and kill you. It's that West Coast style of hockey where they play physical, they use their body to win puck battles, and they lay hits, And honestly, like if I'm the Penguins and I'm looking to make swaps of like Brian Dumoulin or certain other players that we'll likely get to in a couple minutes, I'm looking to target some more guys from the Western Conference, similar to like what Ricard Raquel is. So we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well just start now. I mean, there's plenty of odds that the Pens have to consider as far as, guys they may want to keep or move out or whatnot. And you mentioned Dumoulin, Dougie. Do you think the Penguins are actually going to try and shop him around this offseason? Because to me, I feel like if anyone's going to get moved out on that back end, it's going to be Pedersen, not him.
I don't see how you would move Marcus Pedersen or John Marino after the playoff series they had. Yes, they did both kind of vomit all over themselves in the game 7, but up until that point, they looked like a great pairing. They were driving possession. They were one of the best pairings in the playoffs in terms of expected goals for percentage. And I feel like that's a pairing that should not be broken up. And let's be honest, for whatever reason, that front office loves Mike Matheson. They love what he brings to the table. They love his skating ability, contract status and cap hit be damned. But he's somebody that they probably won't move either. And I think it would be harder for them to move Matheson because the perceived value from the organization compared to what the asset might be worth on the trade market is two completely different worlds. And honestly, like, let's just call it what it is. Brian Dumoulin's getting older and he's starting to slow down a little bit. And a good bit of the time this year, he did look really, really bad. Or not, I'm not going to say really, really bad, but he looked like a shell of his former self a lot of the times throughout the year. There was probably a good 5 to 8 game stretch that they had probably sometime in January and it all fizzled out after he popped off with that goal in Dallas when they played the Stars, where he looked like his old self. And then we never got it back, and that's the issue whenever you play that rugged style like Dumoulin plays. It's a ticking time bomb until your body just starts to shut down on you. Like, look at what happened with Brent Seabrook in Chicago. And that's true. It's two very similar styles. I mean, we could also say the same thing for a bit of an older guy, retired a little bit ago, but Matt Carl when he was in Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. Same deal. So, go ahead.
So just going off that, I think Matheson, the way he stepped up this year, he kind of made Dumoulin more expendable. Because, if there was one point during the year where you could have made the case that, Brian Dumoulin was the best defenseman on the Pens back end. I believe that at least. So, yeah, Matheson step into his role is pretty much made him expendable. I still feel like the Pens, if they are going to make a move, it's going to be involving, either him and or Pedersen. I just don't see them holding on to Pedersen. I don't know why, but I feel like if that's the guy you move out, that, it would end up being him. And if you do end up moving out one of those guys or both of them for that matter, do we feel like you'd be okay with seeing POJ getting some regular time next year?
I'd be fine with that.
Because to me, here's the way I see it. If you end up moving guys out, I feel like you got to let some of the Wilkes-Barre guys start to ride a little bit. You got to let Drew O'Connor and Dean DeHorn and let those guys play, and POJ. I feel like you got to let those guys, do their thing.
Yeah, go ahead, TK.
No, I was just going to say they've kind of earned that time from the couple times you do see him on the ice with the Pens. With the couple times they've been called up, You know, the times Drew O'Connor's been out there, they seem to prove themselves a little bit that they're, you know, somewhat ready, if not ready, you know, to come up to the NHL. So I'm on Scotty, give him a shot.
Yeah. And, you know, that's a big thing that I want to see is like, truthfully, I think they should go into the next season with their fourth line consisting of Radim Zahorna, Teddy Bluger, and Drew O'Connor. I think that is the perfect retooling of that Bluger line, where not only is it still effective, but it's also more cost effective as well. Because here's the thing: in this league, if you're going to have a $2 million fourth line center, you damn well better make sure that the two players playing alongside him make less than $2 million combined, if you're going to be able to build a true Stanley Cup contender and be able to spread out the love throughout the rest of the forward lines and the rest of the D pairs. And as for POJ, I mean, you guys know I've been advocating for that for about a year and a half now. I think that if he were to come up, he plays with Marino, or he plays with Letang if he does indeed end up staying in Pittsburgh. But I think that, honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense for your three left side defensemen going into next season being Mike Matheson, POJ, and Mark Friedman. Because not only is it cheap, it's also effective. And that's the thing that I don't think people understand is the Penguins can play money ball in some areas just due to how good of a coach Mike Sullivan is and how sound his system structure is. They could have a very cheap-ish defense, and we can finally end the ever-relenting hell that Jim Rutherford has placed on this organization, with 5 of your 6 defensemen in the top 60 group making $4 million or more, because that is just straight up asinine. And that's what causes dynasties like this to fizzle out and become stagnant, when you overcommit money to these depth players and these third pairing defensemen. That was the biggest reason why I was so unbelievably excited when they were able to get Chad Weedle on that extension, where he's only making like $800,000 against the cap, because you need guys like that to keep the window open. You know, just because Gino and Letang might leave doesn't necessarily mean that it's over. When you have Sid, you always still have a chance. When you have Jake Gensel, you always still have a chance. It's just a matter of, how are you going to help them? How are you going to fill out the rest of the lineup and get it built back up to the point where it's not going to be a complete carbon copy of what Sid's had for the past 17 years of his career, but they can make it pretty damn close, where they may come out on top, if not, or they may come out better on the other side than what a lot of us are expecting.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's just the reality of it, is that, you know, like you said, you still have those guys like Sid and Gensel, and, you know, knock on wood, hopefully one of Malkin and or Letang do end up coming back. Obviously, that's going to take a lot of, you have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to make that work. But we'll see what happens with that situation. I mean, we can talk about, you know, players getting moved down and whatnot. We have months to figure that out. I just want to focus now on like the playoffs itself, the hockey that we actually watched for the last week and a half. Because to me, obviously I'm disappointed with the outcome. I think every Pens fan should be, you know, regardless of the fact that, you know, everyone's saying the same things, like, oh, Crosby was hurt, and oh, we had a third string goalie in net. The fact of the matter is that we're up 3-1. We chased the Hart candidate, probably the most likely going to be the Vezina Trophy winner, twice from net, and we don't end up winning that series. It's just not a good. That can't happen. I don't care who you have out of the lineup or who's in it. You know, that's one of those things where you're just going to look back and think, you know what, that one got away from him. You really will. I think we're gonna look back on this series and say there's no reason why they shouldn't be playing Carolina on tomorrow night down Raleigh.
And that's what it comes down to with trying to find more quality depth players. You know, you had, I mean, they were basically dragging Kasperi Kapanen around like it was weekend at Bernie's the entire series. Jeff Carter's just free skating out in the middle of the ice like he's a elderly golden retriever just trying to live up the last bit of time he has. You know, I mean, God love Brian Boyle for basically tearing his knee to shreds for in the process of hitting Jacob Trouba. But we all know Drew O'Connor should have been in that lineup over him. You know, and that's the thing. Like that's why I want them to start taking the step forward to get younger. Because if you provide these veteran players who just have the ever so wonderful intangibles, I don't care who your coach is or where he's from or how good he is or what his background is. Every hockey coach will always fall for the intangibles guy or the veteran leadership guy. Henceforth, why we didn't see Teddy Bluger for a good 2 to 3 years after we were probably supposed to see him, because we were still dragging Matt Cullen around. You know, I'm not saying that this whole thing needs to be over and they need to blow it up, but there's obvious issues that need to be corrected. And a lot of it comes down to if they do potentially chase Hextall and Burke out, you have to hire an aggressive general manager that has good hockey sense, but also if the Fenway group's going to hire somebody, it's going to be an analytics guy. And, you know, I mean, literally all you have to do is look at what they've done with the Red Sox and look at what they did with Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool's loaded now because of the Fenway group. You know, the truth is they could easily retool this on the fly. Next year might suck a little bit, but if they get a decent draft pick out of it, who cares?
It's all part of
Just
the
referring to you know, some of the guys who performed or underperformed. As much as we're gonna dog on Jeff Carter for, you know, how he played in this series, I don't think he was that bad, truthfully. At the end of the day, he put up a decent number of points, comparatively speaking to the rest of these guys. So I mean, Kapanen's the one that's frustrating. I don't know how we can look at Kapanen's series, look at all the chances he had, and he basically walked away with nothing. That's the part that's frustrating me the most of this series. He was just basically taking shots and doing nothing.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Jeff Carter had a bad series. It's just, you know, Jeff Carter is probably the biggest catalyst to a good bit of what Ron Hextall has done wrong since he's gotten here, because he traded Jared McCann away so he could protect Jeff Carter. You know, like they could still have Jared McCann right now. I mean, you know, we could be talking about Jared McCann potentially playing next year with Sid, or Jared McCann centering the second line, whichever one it may be. But regardless, Ron Hextall still made a panic move and traded him to the Maple Leafs for a prospect they already traded once, you know? And then not only that, he doubles it down and gives him an extension with term and a full no movement clause. He gave an extension with term to a veteran player where they're getting a raise. Veteran players in the position that Jeff Carter's in, where he's in a bottom six role, shouldn't be getting raises. They should be taking less so that they're able to continue to build around the pieces that they have in place there.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, absolutely. Now, another guy who, also had a pretty impressive series, hit or miss during the season. Dougie, you were a fan of him early on, Danton Heinen. Me personally, I feel like we can upgrade there. That's just me. I feel like the Penguins can upgrade his position because I see him as a bottom six guy. I think they kind of forced him into a line with Gino, to be honest with you, because Zucker basically missed the entire season. So I feel like the Penguins kind of forced Heinen to play a role that, not that he wasn't comfortable with, but it just wasn't a fit for him. But to me, I feel like the Penguins can get a better option when in free agency when it does show itself. Just thinking out loud here. Well, actually, let me check real quick before I sound like an idiot. See if I can deal with this guy. Yeah, we just played against him. Cop. You trying to tell me he wouldn't be an upgrade over Danton Heinen?
100% it would be.
I'm just going to say this. Danton Heinen's going to get paid, but if Malkin ends up leaving, or no, not Dan Heinen, I meant Andrew Copp's going to end up getting paid. I completely just crapped my pants there. I'm sorry. But if Malkin leaves, I would literally just back up a Brinks truck at Ryan Strome or Andrew Copp. Like Andrew Copp is just like he's the perfect player. Like he's everything you want in a player. Because he can score 50 or 60 points a year, but he's also so defensively responsible. And he's quite literally the best penalty killer in the league. Like what more could you want? But with Heinen, honestly, like if they signed like a 1 or 2 year deal where he's making like $2-ish million, I'm okay with it if he's playing on the third line. And I'm going to throw this at you guys with Evan Rodriguez. If they do switch management and they try and move Jeff Carter out and try and get him out of here somehow, I want them to sign Evan Rodriguez to a 3 or 4 year deal where he's making around the $3 million AAV and let him be that JG Pajot type defensive minded third line center that can score.
Third line center?
Yes. I mean, dude, he was taking faceoffs basically the entire series and down the stretch too. I think he can do it.
They're gonna put him on the wing before they put him at center. For being honest,
Which is tough.
They're not bumping Carter right now.
No, but like, I think that you sign him to the extension for him to play wing right now, with the intention of potentially bumping him to center. I mean, look at what happened in Minnesota with Freddie Gaudreau. He's playing wing for us, and now he's center as Kirill Kaprizov.
How about that, huh?
That's crazy. It's crazy stuff, And then
good for him. Good for him.
Honestly, though, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's just it's too early to tell, but obviously, let's get into the goalies. Let both of them walk. Keep Jari and get Jari a legitimate number 2 to run with him.
I think you read my mind, Doug. I was waiting for you to finish to go with that.
I'm gonna go against the grain here. Actually, I like how Casey DeSmith played down the stretch.
I'll give you that.
Let's be honest. When you have that's not an easy situation to throw a guy into, where your goalie's basically injured for the last 2 or 3, however many weeks it was, and we're going, oh no, this is bad. What are we gonna do? We have this guy in net. There's no way he's gonna be able to get the job done, and he didn't play terribly. He was actually, they looked at him and said, hey, you basically have to hold the fort down for the next few weeks and possibly the first round of the playoffs. And everyone's going to look at Louis Domingue as the success story here and whatnot, and good and whatever. He got his shine for it. But Casey DeSmith wasn't playing bad in game one. He was having a pretty good game, and against the team that I think they put like 30 plus shots on the guy. So it wasn't like he was having a bad showing. Me personally, I think if you give Casey DeSmith, you know, somewhere between 1 and 1.5 mil and let him run as the backup, you're good. I'm staying with Casey DeSmith. I don't need we don't need a legitimate backup. I think we have one now. I think he finally got his game together. He figured out what he needed to. Let that guy run. He's earned his spot. There's no need to kick him down now. I think he's earned his his stay here.
Yeah. And my only thing is if he gets an extension, he has to make backup money. Like it has to be like the max I go is $1 million AAV. I think. Yeah, and the big thing is like just let Louis go. Like
Yeah.
I could never do it. I can't do it. You know, everybody's gonna be mad. They'll be like, oh, they won 3 games. It's like, no, like Sid and the rest of the guys won them those 3 games in spite of Louis Domingue.
Now you guys, Doug, you were saying about letting both of them walk, to Smith and Domingue. So if that's the case, if that was the case, looking at obviously Tristan Jarry played well this season, the entire season, so you're gonna keep him around. Last season I might not have said the same. He played a hell of a lot better this season than he did last season, in my personal opinion. But if you were looking at going to grab a backup, if you were to let Smith and Domingue walk, who's out there that's available, and the free agency is going to come up, or who would you trade for? Who would you see a fit to be a backup under Jarry?
Listen, I've been blessed to see 3 Stanley Cups in the past 16 years of my life. I'm here for memes. Bring Fleury back for fun.
You realize how much you got to pay for that?
I don't really think they'll have to pay much. I genuinely think there's going to be a weird lopsided interest between Alan Walsh and Marc-Andre Fleury to return to either Vegas or Pittsburgh. And it's going to be cheap to be a 1B goalie for a year. Keep in mind, the Pens probably only need a backup for a year because in theory, they still have Philip Lindbergh down in Wilkes-Barre. I know he was hurt for a good bit of the year, but if he has a good year next year in Wilkes, he'll likely be ready to come back up Jarry that next season. And that's a guy that the organization has thought very highly of, and they think that he has a lot of potential to be a solid backup or a potential 1A, 1B in the league.
I don't know why why we keep coming back. And it's not just us, obviously, but it's just like Pittsburgh Penguins fandom in general. Keep coming back to this guy. Please stop trying to force the Flower back into the Bird. He had his fun, okay? He had, 13, 14 years here. It's okay to let guys go. It's okay if we just sign him to a 1 day and let him retire as a Penguin, but I don't need to see a season with Marc-Andre Fleury as the backup. I don't. I need to see a goalie who I know is actually supposed to be a backup, not who's going to be challenging. Have our starting goalie who's just now returning to all-star form, looking over his shoulder every game, thinking to himself, okay, if I have a bad game, they might give the reins back to Flower. I hope Flower just signs with some garbage team next year and just does enough to get to how many wins is he away from at 500? He's got to be close. Let me look here. But my point is that I don't need to see the Flower back in Pittsburgh. For a love of
That's
God.
the case. Let him go to Toronto and replace Jack Campbell.
Sure. Why not?
You can't get any
Okay,
worse.
so-
I mean,
He's actually at 520. I didn't know that. He actually has 520 career wins, so good for him. But yeah, let yeah, let him go.
All right.
Just
I mean,
let that
we had our last
I can't
dance.
even say it. I can't even say it, man. Like, damn. I just don't want it. I'm sick of the flurry fan fiction that comes from these fanboys on Twitter. Just let it
Remember,
go.
I don't remember. I'm not the one who actually peddles the fan fiction. I'm the
I
one who
know.
fights
I know
the
you.
fan fiction.
I know you are, but I get tired. But I get tired of seeing it. Nonetheless, I just get sick of it.
you want to
And
add
who
just
knows?
So,
Maybe
yeah.
I want him back just so that I can attack the fan fiction writers again. Because we all know back in 2018, 2019, I had a vicious looking burner account going that was just dedicated to attacking people that slandered Matt Murray.
I remember that. Remember that.
Those were dark
You went
times.
off on people for slandering Matt Murray.
It was dark times. And
You want
then
to, yeah, you want to target the fan fiction though. You might as well say you want to bring Jordan Stahl back to the Pens too.
that's coming after this year. Oh, just you wait. Just you wait. No, but honestly, I'd be okay with bringing DeSmith back, and like, you know, if not, like maybe somebody like a Jonas Corpusalo type goalie. Like, he's not going to threaten Jari's job by any way, shape, or form, but he's still a damn good backup whenever he has his game straight. You know, and I think if you get him working with the goalie coach, he would be good.
Yeah.
You know, and then let's just get this one out of the way. After seeing that playoff series, we're keeping Jason Zucker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy's a warrior. You
I mean,
figure everything that he's went through this year, and just the fact that he's probably still wasn't 100% healthy, if we're being honest. And he's going out there, throwing his weight around, blocking shots, still doing what he has to do. Like I said, you know, if the Penguins do end up losing a lot of guys this offseason, I'd be okay with seeing Zucker and Gino together again next year if they're able to bring Gino back. Truthfully.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with it too. You know, and I mean, really, like, honestly, like, what else are they going to do? Like, obviously, they're going to move a defenseman out to save cap, I think.
Maybe too.
You know, as controversial as this might be for us to say, they should probably move out Brock McGinn, or at least attempt to.
That's not. Yeah, I mean that's realistic. I wouldn't say it's unruly. Yeah.
You know,
That's definitely a
because like
possibility.
it's hard, man. Like, with the way the team's assembled, you can't be paying out almost $3 million in cap to a fourth line guy.
Mhm.
You know, and that was the thing. I mean, they fell into the same trap that they fell into with Brandon Tanev, where, you know, he played so tenacious and so great down on the fourth line that Mike Sullivan thought, okay, like, if I have to elevate him in a role, he'll do the same thing. And it just didn't happen, you know? And that's the thing that's difficult. It's like, you need more Swiss Army knife type players like Heinen and Rodriguez, where you can put them on any line and they're going to succeed to an extent. You know, or at least perform well enough to, you know, not warrant criticism, you know. But obviously, I think the biggest thing that's on my wish list for this offseason, outside of keeping the core together, is probably just getting rid of Kasperi Kapanen. I wouldn't even give him a qualifying offer. I think you non-tender him and let him walk as a UFA. And if there's a team out there that somehow wants to trade for his services, you cash out on that and you run.
So, could they do what they did with Ryan Malone and like trade his rights to somebody if they wanted to? Like,
Yeah, with him still being a UFA, they could get something of good value back. Like we're talking, they could probably do a player for player swap and just shuffle some form of deck chairs and hope to God they come out on the other side with the upper hand.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Obviously, this year was a tremendous letdown in terms of just, how he played, but
It's tough. He's
float him
not.
in front of,
Go ahead.
I'm going to say just float him in front of, old Jimmy. Float him in front of Jimmy one more time, just to see if he takes the bait or not,
Yeah, just listen. This is what I want at the draft. I want like them to like. I want whoever the GM is at the time. I want them to throw out a fishing hook, and it's gonna have the 21st pick on it and the rights to Kasperi Kapanen. And then we move up to 15 and we actually draft a good player. We move up to 15 and we draft Connor Geeky.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, that might be something that's in the cards, still potentially trading with Vancouver. And then another team I think might be in the cards is trading with Toronto. I mean, there are not two more desperate teams in this league right now than the Penguins and the Maple Leafs. There's probably a deal to be had. Whoever's making the trades at that point in the summer, figure it out. Just please, for the love of God, do not trade for Justin Hall. Yeah. My heart can't handle much more. Don't do it. But like if we're talking that, like try and get Kerfoot.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, try and get Kerfoot because like he can be a top 6 left winger. He can be a top 6 center. He can be your third line center. You can plug and play him in different roles, and he's still going to ball for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, do you guys want to talk about the playoff series coming up real quick?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's first things first. Let's recap some of these other ones that we've had because I do want to touch on the team that we just talked about. Actually, the Leafs and the Lightning. Obviously, that was.
Painful.
I'm not surprised that Toronto lost again. Honestly, the writing was on the wall once that phantom high sticking penalty was called in Game 6. As soon as that was called, I was like, "That's it. The Leafs just lost the series." You could see you felt like the hockey gods were reminding themselves, "Oh wait, this is the Maple Leafs we're dealing with here. We don't have to be nice to them." And then boom, they call another 5-on-3. They call another penalty, giving them a 5-on-3. Kucherov scores. Point was in overtime. It was just done. I genuinely believe that the Maple Leafs are a team of destiny, meaning that every time spring rolls around, they are destined to lose in the first round. I genuinely believe that. Just it happens every year, and no one should be surprised by it, truthfully. So the question is now, I mean, and like you said, Dougie, the Leafs the Leafs have to be in panic mode now. You have to start looking at your team and saying, okay, we've built up this core. We've had them together for 6 years now. We've had a core of Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and Riley. And what do we have to show for it? We haven't made it out of the first round yet. And if you're Austin Matthews, that guy's definitely thinking to himself right now, geez, I've been here for 6 years with these guys, and I haven't made it past the first round yet. I wonder if I can actually get it done with this group. Like me personally, if I'm Austin Matthews, I'm gauging my future on what happens next year. If the Leafs don't make it out of the first round next year, I'm not signing an extension with them. I don't think he'll be outright and request a trade and say, "Hey, get me out of here." But if they don't make it out of the first round next year, and Kyle Dubas says, "Hey, Austin, let's talk about this contract negotiation. Here's an extension for you to sign," he won't sign it. I don't think he will. And I think it'll be like a Jordan Staal deal where it's like, "Hey, here's an extension. No thanks. All right, I get the message. We'll start making phone calls." That's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
it's such a difficult situation because Austin's literally the best player in the world right now. And the people around him can't get it done. And a lot of it is like, I'm just gonna say it, John Tavares, not great.
Not worth 11 mil.
No, not great. They would have been better off just winging it with Kadri for another year or so, and then just trying to see what they could have pulled off. Because honestly, man, like, I mean, it's so bad. Like, and I'm not saying they need to trade a core piece by any stretch of the imagination, but you gotta clear cap space out somehow. Like, move Kerfoot out. Launch Justin Hall to the moon. Get that guy out of there. He shouldn't have been playing to begin with. It should have been the third pairing should have been Giordano and Liljegren. Like, I feel like that was their best defensive set that they had going whenever after they got Giordano was whenever they were scratching Justin Hall for Timothy Liljegren. And the issue is they're gonna have to find a goalie. They're not going to be able to pay Jack Campbell. And this is my hot take. Vegas is going to just implode beyond God's belief this summer. See if you can steal Robin Leonard. Go see if you can steal Robin Leonard. You have the prospect base. You have the draft picks. Dangle Nick Robertson or Nick Abruzzese and see if you can go get Robin Leonard. Because at a $5 million AAV for the next couple of years, especially if the cap starts going up like they're saying it's going to, they will be able to manage that.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. You really think they won't be able to bring back Campbell?
I read somewhere that they're not going to be able to. They offered him a couple year extension between 2.75 and 3 million, and he said no.
Yeah, he's not taking that.
Worth way more.
What were you saying, TK?
Worth more than that.
Well, I think that we're going to see this as an issue across the board in the league where teams aren't ready to shell out a crap load of money to these players because of the current financial structure in the league. And it's going to cause like a mass divide where a bunch of guys are just going to start taking less. We might have key free agents not signed rolling into August with the way things are going, potentially.
Yeah.
Either that or else all the rebuilding teams are going to somehow accelerate their rebuild by paying these guys.
Yeah, also a possibility. Just look at some other series here. The other one that ended last night in overtime, by the way, Calgary and Dallas. First and foremost, what a performance by Jake Ottinger. Oh my goodness gracious. The fact that Dallas even had a shot at competing in that game. Nothing short of a miracle based on what that guy did. Unreal how well he played.
I mean, really, the entire series.
Yeah, that guy is going to be the future backbone of your team moving forward. Right now, it's him.
Yeah.
Robertson and Heiskanen. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of when the Canucks were in the bubble and Thatcher Demko came in and took Vegas to 6 or 7 games. I mean, and honestly, guys, Dallas is going to be a freaking wagon. They have a very loaded prospect pool of guys that can potentially make the jump as early as next year. And in about 2 to 3 years, it's going to be the perfect mix of young guys and old guys and older guys. And it is going to be unreal. Is it going to suck that they're going to lose John Klingberg Yes, but they still have Heiskanen, and I imagine they're going to try and find more minutes for Thomas Harley going into the next season. So good for Dallas. And then for Calgary, that's going to be, it's a fun team to watch, you know?
Yes.
And I think just as hockey fans in general, you couldn't be happier for Johnny Gaudreau knowing that he's finally performing at an elite level in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, and that was a guy who was getting absolutely shredded by Daryl Sutter whenever he got hired there. But for whatever reason, he got his game stepped up and he's got himself back into elite form. You know, I mean, they're probably the outside of Colorado. They're probably the pick to come out of the West.
Best team out West. Best team out West. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, they're definitely going to be a team. They're definitely going to be like, I think they're the closest one, like you said, Dougie, as far as taking out Colorado. You know, that's definitely the potential Western Conference Finals matchup that I'm looking at. And going back to what you said about Sutter and how him and Gaudreau got off to a bumpy start, I'll never forget that quote where the guy, they asked Sutter, it's like, hey, how do you feel about Johnny Gaudreau's 500 games? He's like, well, hopefully it's better than his 499th game. And he just, that was always a good one. I always loved that quote still, but they're looking at the other series here. I don't think we really need to touch upon Colorado and Nashville. That one was pretty much over before it started. Colorado said, hey, here's your free T-shirt. Thanks for coming. See you next year. Florida and Washington. Now, that was one that kind of surprised me. I did not see that series go in 6 games. I'm surprised that one kind of went as long as it did. I know that everyone talks about how Florida is like inexperienced or whatever. I don't buy that. They've been in the playoffs the last 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure they've been in the playoffs the last 2 seasons, so I don't know how I feel about the whole. They're not that experienced compared to Washington. They're a playoff team now. They get there on a regular basis, so I'm not surprised by that. I'm more surprised at the fact that they won 6 games, but nonetheless, Florida comes out on top.
Washington played Florida pretty well in that series. Surprisingly, I'm with you, Scotty. I expected Washington to maybe get 1 win out of that series, and it go, but I don't know. I expected Florida to pretty much blow them out of the water pretty much every game, and obviously that didn't happen. So I mean that worries me a little, especially going into the next series, which I know we'll get to. But they got Tampa next, which, like I said, we'll get to. But that's a tougher team than Washington, in my opinion. I mean, it took Toronto to 7 games. I thought Toronto had it this year, at least past the first round. But I don't know. Do I think Florida can beat Tampa? Yeah, but will they? Maybe not.
A lot of it has to do with Bobrovsky. A lot of it has to do with how Bobrovsky plays.
I mean, I think I'm in the minority in saying that. I feel like I've been talking to you guys and a couple of our other buddies about it the entire time. I thought that Florida was going to get knocked off in the first round before the series even started. Just with the way the defense is built, because outside of Weegar and Ekblad on that top pair, the rest of it isn't really that good. I get Ben Sherratt's a big rugged guy, but like not a possession defenseman. Turns the puck over a lot. Not good in those areas. Tampa's going to be interesting because I know they're going to be without Braden Point to at least start the series. I mean, I know that means nothing because I feel like their entire top 6 is consisted of natural centers that just randomly say, oh, hey, I'm going to play wing now because I'm so good and I need to be in the top 6. I was watching the Toronto game 7, and whenever Stamkos got kicked out of a draw, I was like, okay, like this is good. Here we go. And then Anthony Cirelli stepped in and I was like, okay, like that sucks, but
literally, yeah.
Honestly, man, Tampa would be interesting to see, and moving forward. I mean, St. Louis and Minnesota was an interesting little series. Minnesota's goaltending just completely imploded, it felt like, but I really like the way the Blues are constructed. Their top 9 is really, really good. And Robert Thomas is one of the most underrated players in this league.
Oh, yeah.
I, you know,
Oh, wasn't he at like a point per game this year?
yeah,
He was at least pretty close to it.
he
Yeah.
pulled the old Joe Thornton special where it's like, hey, I'm gonna have 20 goals and like 60 assists.
Yeah.
It was impressive. Um, but the biggest thing that St. Louis is probably gonna run into is goaltending issues. Like Ville Husso has been great so far, man, but like, you really think that he's going to be able to get them the rest of the way? I mean, I got a feeling we're going to see Jordan Bennington by game 4, game 5 of the series.
If not earlier.
I wouldn't say it's a goaltending issue necessarily. I think it's a good problem to have. Even if Husso does crap out, you still have Bennington, who, if we're being honest, didn't play that poorly heading down the stretch here. I think that's a good problem to have. Going up against a team like Colorado too, obviously, you have that experience. I don't know if we'll see how it goes, obviously. But right now, that's a good issue to have. I wouldn't say it's a problem. Even if Husso doesn't, can't handle what Colorado throws at him, there's no reason why Bennington can't.
One of them would definitely have to stand tall.
Go ahead. Well,
one of them would definitely have to stand tall. I mean, obviously, we look at. I mean, yeah, Nashville's a kind of wash from Colorado, and I'm a little biased, but just looking at what the team has, Colorado can put the puck in the net. So, and they're determined. They're like one of those teams, the way you see it, that if they can run the score up, even if they're blowing a team out, they continue to kind of do it. They don't really go up to like 2 goals and be like, okay, well, we're just gonna, just play them hard and not score anymore. No, if they want to put up 8 goals on you, they'll do it. If they're able to do it, they will. So, I mean, not only, you can have a semi-average goaltender. I feel like is if you have a really good defense to play with them. St. Louis's defense isn't bad at all. They're good. But like you guys said, goaltending, it's there, but it's not at the same time. So, if they kind of step it up a little bit, I think you could easily, make it a competition against Colorado. I don't have my full faith in Colorado for next round at all. Because as a Colorado fan, you see it multiple years. They completely annihilate the first round contender they have, whether it, was Arizona before, it was, it was Nashville this time, just blow people out of the water, and then you go to the second round, you crap your pants.
That's how they tease them. They have them thinking, we're absolute wagon this year. Meanwhile, they're playing teams that barely. They're playing the second wild card. That's how
they play the bottom team, the team that just that was the last one to make it into the playoffs, and you look good all season long. But when playoffs come around, every team finds like a new version of themselves because they're like, okay, we made it to the playoffs now. We step our game up. If you're in the playoffs, you got a shot. If you miss the playoffs, obviously you can't win anything. But if you're in the playoffs, even if you're that bottom wild card, you got a shot. So anybody can be anybody in this game. But yeah, like you said, Scotty, they're playing the bottom team in the playoffs. So yeah, they're going to blow them out of the water. But when they play a team that's a little bit better, they still have that little attitude of we whoop their butt. We can go ahead and do this with the second round, and then they end up getting beat. So do I think Colorado can win the series and make it to the West Final? Yes. But do I have faith in them? Not really.
No matter what happens, no matter what direction this goes, this series is going to go 7, I think.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
It's going to be a good little series. Now, moving on to the one that I'm most intrigued to see, New York and Carolina. I really think the Rangers can beat the Hurricanes if Igor gets hot, because this is the way I see it. You win championships in this league by having a great third line. And that kid line that the Rangers have is probably the best third line you could potentially assemble, unless you're Tampa Bay. And like the biggest thing that's like been clutch for the Rangers is like they just threw Kopp and Vetrano in the top 6 after the deadline. They're killing it. Like, I mean, and like I said before, Andrew Kopp looks amazing. Frank Vetrano does not look out of place with Mika and Chris Kreider. And they still have one of the best defensemen in the game in Adam Fox. I really, if Igor's able to stay hot and build off the momentum that he had in Game 6 in Pittsburgh and Game 7 in New York, I really think that this Rangers team can make a Cinderella run.
Yeah, I mean, that's not outrageous to think. Like you said, they've got the third line that can get it done. Obviously, the defensive core stepped up. Keandre Miller, who didn't really get talked about that much, had a huge series against the Pens this past round. He's definitely going to be a factor. And they got Pushesti, so I don't think there's really any way that they can go wrong. It's definitely in their favor, to say the least. For Carolina, who's the one guy that's going to step up for them and like take look? We saw it in this past series. Jake Gensel had a huge series. 8 goals in 7 games is nuts. And that's honestly why it went to 7. Who on Carolina is going to step up and do that? Put up a performance that can take you to 7 games and maybe even win it. Who's going to be that guy? To me, there isn't one guy on that lineup that can do that.
Yeah, but I also know that the Rangers had a lot of trouble this year defending Sebastian Aho. So he could potentially be that guy. And also keep in mind, Max Domi had a great Game 7 last series. He could easily be carrying momentum into the Rangers series and go off. And listen, even though, you know, we can say whatever we want about him as a person, Tony DeAngelo is going to be out for blood in this series, dude.
Oh, 100%.
It's going to be amazing content to just see Tony DeAngelo probably just run around like the menace to society that he is because of the entire situation and how things ended in New York and how he thought that they were in the wrong or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that until now. Yeah, you're right. There's definitely going to be some personal battles there that'll need to be settled for sure. So that's something to look forward to. So, I mean, you mentioned your series that you're looking forward to. I think the obvious one that I'm looking forward to, Battle of Alberta. We get it again. We get Oilers and Flames. And I don't know why people think people actually think the Oilers have a shot in this one? There's no way. They barely beat the Kings. And the Kings are basically, I don't know how the Kings got in here, but they did. I don't know. To me, the Flames are going to wipe the floor with the Oilers. I see people saying, oh, the Oilers are going to ride this momentum. Look who they're playing. They played the Kings. The Kings had no business being here. The fact that series even went to 7 games was embarrassing in and of itself. And you think that they're going to be able to beat the Flames the way the Flames are playing right now, the way Markstrom's playing right now? Johnny Hockey's playing the best hockey of his career so far. Matt Tkachuk's doing his thing. I just don't see any way Edmonton walks out of here with a series win.
Yeah, Mike Smith would have to just go God mode.
And he's not going to.
And I feel like he already kind of just did that to get them out of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
There's no way he's going to be able to do that. Like, there's no way you can expect. How old is he? Like 38 now?
Close to 40. He's close to 40.
Late 30s.
Yeah,
Late 30s. Yeah.
Yeah, late 30s goaltender that is been your starter the entire year. He, as far as he's gotten you here, it's probably going to stop there, And I really want to see Calgary move on, just because all these shots we're getting in the crowd of Brady and Walt just going absolutely bonkers anytime the Flames do anything is hilarious. My favorite thing that I saw on the internet today was the video of Brady dancing around with the little kid on his shoulders.
That was awesome.
That was the best.
That's great. That was pretty good. Yeah, I like that one as well. But yeah, that has been the little side content that people have enjoyed, is seeing the Kachucks go nuts in the stands every time. They're basically become the new the biggest fans. It's like how, we just to make a Pens reference here, how we always saw Gino's parents up in the stands whenever he was going nuts back in '09. It's basically the same thing there. It's just having your family in the building every night watching you play. That's got to be awesome.
Yeah, and the coolest thing about it is like they willingly sit in the lower bowl amongst the
Yeah.
fans.
They are in the thick of it.
They are fully in the mix, and
They
it's
can
not
definitely
like
they can definitely afford a suite, and they choose not to. It's like, no, put us there in the masses. We want to be a part of the madness. That's
I
awesome.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's
Really.
the biggest reason why I just don't want the Sens to make the playoffs anytime soon. Just so we can keep getting more of this
Just so-
great content.
Just so Brady's springs are free, he can go watch his brother play.
Yeah, like, like Drake Batherson's booking, Drake Batherson and Josh Norris are booking tea times. Brady's buying Calgary Flames playoff tickets.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Anything else that you guys want to touch on real quick or no?
Pretty much touched on everything. This has been a good little warm up so far to what the playoffs have provided. Hopefully, the second round is just as, if not more, entertaining. So we'll see what happens here. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah. TK, you got anything else?
Not really. We got a lot of good matchups in the second round, though. I mean, like as you mentioned, Scotty, the Battle of Alberta is going to be really good. It's always great. It's always a physical matchup. I think the only way you could see the upper hand from Edmonton is if they got a little more physical against Calgary. Like they sometimes do. Usually you see a little back and forth with physicality between those two in the matchup. Sometimes you see some brawls break out with that one. So I mean I got Calgary in that one. That's a good battle. I mean, Florida and Tampa, I mean, they're out for blood with each other at this point too, because they can't stand each other. I'd love to see Florida come out on top of that. Obviously, I'd like to see Colorado come out, and then Carolina and Rangers. I mean, am I upset that the Rangers beat the Pens? Yeah, but I honestly am okay with either team winning that series. I mean, those two teams that for me, it's kind of hard to hate either one. Because I think both of them play well and they both deserve spots. So I mean, I'm looking forward to the next round. And if I have a dream come true for me for this year, I'd love to see Colorado and Florida in the Stanley Cup. So if that would happen, that'd be great. But
that would be nuts. I think that would make me have a heart attack, honestly.
I would.
That would be good hockey.
Yeah, that would be the NHL's wedding gift to me. The NHL's wedding gift would be Florida and Colorado.
My God.
I'll just mail the commissioner a invite right now.
Imagine imagine you got the worst wedding gift ever. They go to the Stars won last night and they go to the Western Conference Final and lose to Dallas.
You know what? Dallas is like kryptonite to Colorado. I wouldn't be surprised if that would have happened.
I know.
I wouldn't be surprised. Dallas is one of those teams that just whoops Colorado for no reason.
All right. I know. All right. We're gonna close this one out. I'll tell you what though, TK, it was fun having you back on this.
Thanks, man. I appreciate coming back on. Yeah, it was nice to do it. So
yeah. All right, guys. Well, this has been another episode of Forechecking TV. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @Forechecking TV and look for us wherever you get your podcasts from. All right, guys. Have a good night.